Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, spread fans. You are listening to J-Dash here with R-triple-O-G Deuce. That is gangsta talk for RG2. And we are here to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers draft upcoming. When is the draft?
April 28th.
April 28th it starts. It lasts, what, a week now?
It's 3 days.
Getting kind of tired of that. But last season, we did a 7-round mock draft. This year, we're just going to talk about some of the players available in the draft for what they need. And to me, on the offensive side, there isn't really any needs. Like you mentioned in our offensive segment, guys, go check that out if you want. Really, the only offensive need is backup quarterback at this point. And on the defensive side, you have D-tackle and everything in a secondary pretty much. So what do you want to start off with here?
Well, we got to start off with what they need. We've been talking about needing a corner or two, a safety or two. And you're definitely going to need a defensive tackle and maybe a defensive end. Remember, though, with the style that Steelers are playing, a defensive end could turn into a defensive tackle in the sub package, which is now played 70% of the time. So, go back and look how much was Stephon Tuitt in a 5 technique, which is our 3-4 end. Probably only 30, maybe 40% of the time. I've seen him on the edge. I've seen him inside. I've seen him in a 1 technique. I've seen Cam Hayward standing up. And the only down man was Stephon Tuitt right at the nose. So you just never know. It's about mixing it up, confusing linemen. So let's start with the secondary because it seems to be the biggest need.
Yeah, and I mean, you have Mike Mitchell at this point. We said they could bring back Will Allen if necessary.
He's there. He'll be there when the Steelers, if the Steelers need him, like they did with Aaron Smith a while ago.
And you also got Robert Golden. So while safety is a definite need, I think it's more important to look at cornerback at this point.
Yeah, we're going to start at corner because I really feel like they need 1 or 2, depending on what their plans are with Dorian Grant. Is he going to be a corner? Is he going to be a safety? Is he going to make the team? And Cortez Allen. They asked him to take a pay cut. I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard whether he refused.
I know Tomlin hates him.
Yeah, Tomlin's been talking bad on him, and he never does that. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be a June 1st cut. In turn saves us. I think he counts 4 point some million against the cap. I think we can rejuvenate 3 point some of that if we cut him after June 1st. So that'll be something that I definitely feel like.
Yeah, the last time I heard Tomlin talk, that they asked him, can Cortez Allen step up and contribute next season? Do you think he can? And he was like, nope.
Yeah, and Tomlin usually has sometimes he'll be a motivator and he'll say it's a good problem to have, or he just straight up said no. So I'm pretty sure like Cortez Allen's days in Pittsburgh are pretty much over, which then tells me that if that's the case, then there could be 2 corners drafted, and looking at the interview process and where they went to pro days, I'm seeing early round corners. And I'm also seeing some sleepers that I'm a sleeper guy because obviously, the top corners are top corners. But I like guys that, you look at and maybe they're lacking height. Maybe they're lacking, a college they went to. Just something so simple. And when you start looking at their stats and looking at tape,
maybe
they're really
they lack
standing
stats
out.
because they don't get thrown to.
Starting with Mackenzie Alexander.
There you go.
Clemson guy. They did send a lot of people to Clemson Pro Day. And I don't think it was just for Mackenzie Alexander because, of course, they're looking at Kevin Dodd. They've been looking at this elephant role at outside linebacker, which is the bigger guy, which is where Jarvis Jones was supposed to be playing. But, we'll get to that here in a minute. But at Clemson, there was a ton of prospects. Mackenzie Alexander's a corner. He had 0 interceptions. That's the big thing that stands out to me. So you have to go back and look at the tape. Did he have opportunities? Is he a Ike Taylor? Ike Taylor was Ike Taylor at his prime was a pretty good shutdown corner. He just couldn't catch a pass. A lot of what Alexander was that they didn't throw to him because they were, he was covering so well. There's some things though that stand out that bothers me about this guy. He excels in man coverage. His zone coverage is not very good. Usually when you see bad zone coverage, it's a lack of football IQ. So that to me bothers me a little bit. I don't evaluate
And the
everybody's
Steelers
tape.
corner got to cover in zone coverage. I mean, that's very important in the Steelers defense.
Yeah, matter of fact, that's. I mean, we're typically zone.
Right.
We very rarely go man, so that bothers me a little bit. They're really high on this guy. They did send a lot of people out. I'm not as high on him as I am some other guys. Mackenzie Alexander is a possibility. Not only did they meet with him at the combine, they attended his pro day. So, there's a double whammy there. And Steelers have always tipped their cap. I was talking about this before. Like, when they send guys out and they go to your pro day and they take you out to dinner, there's a good chance that you're on the radar. So, Mackenzie Alexander was our first one. Our top corners, Jalen Ramsey and Vernon Hargraves, you might as well just forget that. That's not happening. And they're not moving up. They lack picks as it is. Next guy that I feel like could be on their list, and a lot of people has been mocking, is Eli Apple out of Ohio State. We all know the Steelers love Ohio State guys.
And there's been a lot of talk of Eli Apple going to the Steelers as well.
Yeah, and Eli Apple has good size. He's 6 foot 199, good athlete, but he's raw. He hasn't played 4 years. There's some things about him that he gets a lot of holding penalties. He grabs a lot. What shows you then in man that he's not as confident about his skills. It depends on which scout you look at. I've read articles where he's the top corner, and then I've read articles where he needs a lot of coaching before he can. We don't have time for a lot of coaching in the secondary.
Well, no matter who gets drafted, I wouldn't expect immediate results from him.
Right,
but I also don't want to see a guy take 2 to 3 years to work his way into the lineup.
Well, and Steelers haven't drafted corners in the first round, and I'm going to tell you why. Because
they're not Rod Woodson?
That is correct. That's exactly it. Well, number one, it's very hard to evaluate a corner, and I'll tell you why. In college, if you are athletic, you can play corner. But in pro football, in the NFL, everybody's athletic. So now it takes a different skill. It takes different training, and you gotta study film. You can't just go out there and play corner. It doesn't happen. Defensive end is different. You use the same things you used in college. In the NFL, it's completely different. Every guy runs a 4-4 across from you. You're not getting, we'll let you, you can play man on this guy because he's not going to get vertical on you. It's not like that in the NFL. In the NFL, everybody's fast, everybody's an athlete. So it's athlete on athlete. You better know the routes that the guy's going to run. You better know his tendencies. You look for any little thing. And some guys can do it. And here's a perfect example. Justin Gilbert last year. Off the charts coming out of college. High, can't miss, all these things we heard. He was terrible. I mean,
Was it Cleveland or Cincy?
Cleveland.
Well, that's one reason he was terrible.
Yeah, of course. It's got to be the Cleveland Browns. And I'm glad. But and we could go on and on here about different corners. They're so hard to evaluate. As much as I want to see him take a corner, it's very risky. You don't know what you're going to get, and that's still
we've seen him need corners in the past and going into the draft, and they just really stayed away from the position anyways.
Well, and the Steelers, people can knock drafting a corner, but when you're constantly picking after 20, you don't have. I mean, sometimes you can find that corner early. Like Jalen Ramsey's going to be a good football player. If he doesn't work out at corner, he has the ability to play safety too. He's going to participate. Now, if we had the first pick, this wouldn't be an argument. However, we're picking 25. So we're going to get the 4th or 5th or 6th corner being drafted.
Yeah. So
just because you need a corner, Steelers don't ever draft on need. They draft off of the best player available. Now, there is a guy that I am intrigued with, and I'm gonna brag this guy up.
Your boy.
Yeah, his name's William Jackson III. They sent the house, which means when they send the house, they sent the GM, the head coach, the position coach, and the defensive coordinator all to Houston to watch William Jackson III, watch his pro day. And get to talk to him. They took him out to dinner. They also met with him at the combine. Now, the downfall of William Jackson was that he wasn't going to run well. His tape is really good. I read where he was targeted 100 times and he let up. I think it was 31 catches with an average of 4 point some yards a catch. So good tackler. Let's just put it this way: if I'm looking at a corner, Steelers have a checklist. They have to be They like him. You always want to
tackle.
Yeah, you got to be able to tackle. William Jackson can tackle. He checked that off the list. Matter of fact, he's one of the best tackling corners in the draft. You got to look at their size. I know Senquez Golson wasn't their size that they wanted, but he checked everything else off the list. This guy's
perfect.
This guy's almost 6'1", so he's got the size.
Perfect, yes.
Then they said, oh, he wouldn't run well. He ran a 4.37. That's pretty darn good. That's really good for a corner. He jumped off the charts. He was one of the top performers in the corner category. Then you go to his tape, and again, targeted 100 times, let up 31 catches. They didn't throw his way. It was another, but he did have picks. And, he had a lot of tackles. He was like about 40 or 50 tackles. So the guy can tackle. He has 3 or 4 sacks. I mean, he's a pure athlete. He checks all the boxes. Eli Apple, he has potential. Mackenzie Alexander, no picks, can't play zone coverage. This guy plays zone coverage. He plays man coverage. To me, if I'm picking first, and it's a tough position to evaluate, and he might not work out. You never know. But if I'm looking at check boxes, this guy checks every single box in that category. High football IQ. Obviously, I wasn't there when he did the Wonderlic test, but I'm sure they're testing this guy. And if this is the guy that,
is there any chance he goes to the second round?
Negative. There's a chance that he's not even there when the Steelers pick. Obviously, and there was a scout that said if Jalen Ramsey is a safety, then this guy's the top corner. So it's all on how you evaluate. Well, it's all on how you evaluate him. Eli Apple. There's some people that are higher on him. I'm not. Like I said, I don't think we're at the point where we can, say, oh well, he needs a year of coaching. We don't have the guys in front to say, oh, we'll let him set a year, like an outside linebacker or a lineman or a running back. We need a guy now. And I think William Jackson come in. A corner really doesn't come in and play your number one corner spot, which we don't really need him to. I think Cockrell, Gay can play those spots. But I think this guy, just for the future, Golson and Jackson, having Golson and Jackson as your future sounds really good.
Sounds good to me.
So really high on those guys. Now, I do want to talk. There's also like Artie Burns from Miami. He could be early second. He's been flying up the draft boards. He started out as like a third-round pick. He's now up near the first round. Another guy from Virginia Tech is Kendall Fuller. He was injured last year, but there's other scouts that say he's the best corner in the draft. The reason everybody's the best corner in the draft is because it's so hard to evaluate. And again, taking a corner first round is risky. But, that's where all the athletes are.
Reminds me of the quarterback position, to tell you the truth.
Yes, it is. It's tough. You can't guarantee everything. Some other guys now later, like possible third round pick, maybe late second. They met with Harlan Miller from Southeast Louisiana, 6-foot guy, 182 pounds. He ran slow though. That bothers me. He ran a 4.66. Maybe as a safety, just I don't know. The guy's supposed to have a lot of upside. 4.66 compared to 4.40. I mean, you're going to get beat.
I ran faster than that in high school.
Yeah,
I'm not even lying.
Well, I believe it. That's not a very fast speed. Now, here's where it gets to, and this is why I said there's a possibility of 2 corners being drafted. William Jackson being your first pick is fantastic, and I'd be really thrilled with that. Now you start getting into the later picks. Possible 4th, 5th round pick. They don't have a 5th, but they might work to get a 5th. They might move back into 3rd or move back into 2nd to get another 4th or to get a 5th pick. They like their picks, and they'll
what
do
about
what they
first
need to
round? Any chance?
Obviously, if William Jackson's on the board, and some of the D linemen we're going to talk about, if your guys aren't on the board and you feel like they will, you're getting the same amount of value in the second with picking up picks, absolutely. And but with the Browns taking RG3 now and Carson Wentz might push down. That might push Paxton Lynch. That might push some of these other quarterbacks back a little bit, which then causes a chain reaction of people jumping up in front of you or jumping to your pick, and that's the best case scenario. Somebody calls us and says, hey, we want Paxton Lynch, and then they're going to give you a lot more than that pick value wise. Yes. So a guy they had in, they're real high on this guy. He's a Senquez Golson clone, I would say. Jonathan Jones from Auburn.
So expect him to be ready for
injuries
2 seasons from now.
First of all, he's from Auburn. He's an SEC guy, so he's battle tested. He's a smaller guy, but covers very well. The only thing to knock on him is his size. He's 5'9", 5'9" and an eighth. So not a real tall guy.
Still bigger than Golson, isn't it? Is he 5'8" or 5'9"?
Golson's, I think he's 5'8", 5'8" and 3/4 or something.
Tiny.
Yeah. Minnie Mouse is what they call him. But you're going to hear a couple guys, and these are all sleepers, and I think it's only because of their size. If Jonathan Jones was 6 foot, we wouldn't even be talking about him in the later rounds. But Jonathan Jones from Auburn, like that pick. They had a guy, they went to his pro day, again, sent a little bit more than just one guy. Tavon Young from Temple. They met with the pro day, and they had him come into Pittsburgh. Another small guy, 5'9" and 1/8, 183 pounds. I was watching his tape. He is so twitchy fast.
Put him in a slot.
Long speed 4.47, short speed. He ran the four cone fastest of any corner. Just watching him, he was covering a receiver, and the receiver changed direction. And by the time the ball was there, he was already standing in front of it. Like, he can change direction as fast, if not faster, than the wide receiver. So, other than Antonio Brown, I mean, he can pretty much cover anybody. There ain't nobody covering that guy. Another guy they had in, DeAndre Elliott. He's a 6'1", 188-pounder. He ran in the 4.4s. Another sleeper pick that, came from Colorado State, so it's not a big college. Mm-hmm. So what's the hit on this guy at college? We talked about this before. I feel like this guy, Steelers are really high on him. He was a track star, so he definitely has the speed to play.
Does he choke his coaches?
Yeah, Marcus Peters we talked about last year, but, we'd take that choking now.
Yeah.
Another guy, this is 6th, 7th round picks, Ryan Smith, again, college, North Carolina Central, 5'10", 189 pounds. He's a baller. He is a scrapper.
What round would that be?
Well, it would be the compensatory pick in the 6th, or we have I think it's the 5th pick in the 7th round with the trade of Brad Wing. Mm-hmm. So we get an early 7th. So obviously, if any of these guys that I'm talking about, well, Elliott and Smith, I really feel like if they're in that late 6, early 7, that's a no-brainer. I mean, you got to go for it. But there's 3 sleepers there. I really feel like Jonathan Jones ain't really a sleeper. There's some people targeting him, but Tavon Young, DeAndre Elliott, Ryan Smith. I feel like one out of the 3 could get drafted later on. But
so you're looking at one of those 3 and one of the top corners we were talking about, maybe an Eli Apple, maybe a Jackson the 3rd.
Yes, and that'd be the great scenario is having a Jackson the 3rd and then one of these sleeper guys, and maybe they both work out for you. One might only be the smaller guys might just turn out to be slot corners, which is fine with me because.
And obviously, these guys later in the draft probably won't make too big of an impact this season. You're thinking more of a long term for him. Right. But if you're taking a guy in the 1st round, you want to see some kind of production out of him this season.
Absolutely. And, you'd love to see production out of everybody. But like I said, corner is a tough spot. Picking one in the 6th and 7th, you feel much more comfortable about. Yeah. And, honestly, picking late like that, you're looking for all upside. And these guys that I mentioned, they're all sleeper picks in my opinion. So, and they've showed us some attention to him. So that addresses the corner position, the biggest need of them all. So I'm going to jump to defensive line, and then we'll come back to safety, because safety and linebacker are going to kind of intertwine with each other. Right. And you hear a little bit about the segment.
And defensive line, I mean, we got rid of Steve McClendon this offseason. We still have Lance McCullers. And behind that, I mean, like you said, we're going to see maybe Tuitt and Hayward on the inside sometimes or whatever. But we definitely need to get another D-tackle. And really, I would not be mad at all if they went 1st round D-tackle.
And I could really see it happening. A corner's definitely going to be picked, I said, in the first 3 rounds, possibly 6th or 7th round. Very high probability chance of 2 corners being drafted. More of a better chance than 2 safeties. Now, I could also see, on a defensive line part, a defensive end and a defensive tackle. We can't look at NT anymore. NT is about 1, nose tackle. The NFL doesn't value it anymore. If you're only in it 30% of the time, you can't waste a 1st round pick on it. So you look for a guy then that, okay, is there a guy that's built to play the nose tackle? So when we are in our base, he can be a 0 technique, head up on the center. And when we go sub package, being a 3 technique and create a little bit of havoc in there. So that's what they're looking for. 1st round guys to come stands off. Of course, DeForest Buckner would be a great pick for that position. Unfortunately, I feel like Baltimore could be taking him that early. And that guy's going to be a force to be reckoned with. He's 6'7", 291 pounds. He could play 4'3", 3'4". He could play at 300 pounds, and he reminds you a lot of Hayward and Tuitt. Like, he's ready to go right now. And there's guys up there like Joey Bosa from Ohio State.
Yeah.
But
he's going to go way too early.
Some guys that I really feel like Steelers could really look at. And one of my favorites, and the only reason he's my favorite is because he can play that nose tackle position and remain on the defense in a sub-package position. First guy I'm talking about is Andrew Billings from Baylor. Big guy, massive guy. He's that smaller height-wise. He's 6 foot, 311 pounds. So when you hear 6 foot, 311, you think, oh, he's a nose tackle. He's going to play one down, 30. He's going to play 30% of the time and be off the field. The guy ran a 4.75 at 311 pounds. The guy can move. He runs down. Watch film. He's tackling running backs out in the flats, 1 yard deep. He's sacking. He had 3 sacks. He gets to the quarterback. He has passes deflected. This is a guy you want every down to be on the field, and that's what we got to find right now is the guy that can play the nose tackle and be in them sub packages and keep to it and Hayward, give them some air maybe on passing situations.
And this is a first round option?
Andrew Billings is a first round option. If we were talking about trading back in the second round, there's still going to be these guys I'm talking about. Possibly some of these guys could be there. Andrew Billings could be there, pick 5 or 6 into the second round. Possibly. There's also a possibility Andrew Billings could go ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here's the thing about Andrew Billings is you're not going to mess up. I mean, he's going to be a good to great.
So he has a high floor.
He has a very high floor. He's already ready to go. You're going to see maybe Stephon Tuitt type of growth type things where he's coming in. I think he's even more ready than that just because of his size. But I really feel like he could play that nose tackle and be rush the passer as well. These other guys are 4-3 guys, and the thing about them is that they're not built to play the nose tackle, but they can. A guy like Sheldon Rankins from Louisville, he's projected to go anywhere from pick 11 to pick 30. But he's going to be a first-round pick guy. He's from Louisville, 6'1", 299 pounds. He's not as thick.
Still, I want I don't want a 6'7" guy on the inside,
Yeah. Well, you play with the height of your pads. So, like McCullers is a big boy. He's just learning now how to play with good pad height being that tall. He's 6'7". Yeah, he's 6'7". So, that's hard. You can't stand up. I don't care who you are.
Casey Hampton was a freaking bowling ball.
Yeah, he's a short guy, and he's, being 330, you called him Yum Yum, for a reason. But you know what? What we need now is a bigger guy that can go ahead and play that position, but can also an athletic guy. Sheldon Rankins can get to the quarterback, 299 pounds. He could play defensive end. And there's another thing, value to it is, Tuitt and Hayward were exhausted at the end of every game because they played way too many snaps. You'd put LT Walton in the game, or, I forget who else they even subbed in there. And they were tired. And you could see the loss when they weren't in there. I think Tuitt missed a couple games, and you could really see that run game starting to pick up from the other side. So Sheldon Rankins is another guy that I like. Now, this guy here, I would be very happy with as well, but I really feel like he's going ahead of the Steelers, and his name's A'Shawn Robinson. He's 6'3", 307 pounds. All I can tell you is YouTube him. You'll fall in love with him in a second. He downright, and I know you're watching highlight tapes, but...
Yeah, I like watching low-light tapes. I want to see the low-lights.
Yeah, and you know what? You can, if you want to watch low-light tapes, watch the ones where it says, like, A'Shawn Robinson versus, and it says a team. Like, it might say A'Shawn Robinson versus Auburn. It'll show you more than just the highlights.
Right.
So you get to see some of the low-light, but this guy watches highlights, and, he's making plays across, like, the other side of the field. He played a right 5 technique, and he'd be over on the left side of the field making a play. Pass rusher, could play the nose tackle. A little tall for a typical nose tackle, but again, we're not looking at typical nose tackle.
Is he?
He's 6'3".
Yeah, that's not...
307 pounds.
When the one you have now is 6'7", that guy's tiny.
Yeah, and that's a guy there that, definitely first-round pick. Here's another guy, Vernon Butler from Louisiana Tech. They met him at the Combine. He played in I think it was the Senior Bowl. They couldn't block him. He's a big boy. He's 6'3", 323 pounds. Now, this guy would be a little bit more of a nose tackle for us. He didn't have a lot of sacks, but he did rush the quarterback a lot. He forced a lot of quarterback hurries, as you would call it. Tackling machine, can't be blocked. Two gap, could fast enough to play defensive end at 323 pounds. That's what it's saying. That's pretty impressive. Just quick names for defensive tackles. Kenny Clark out of UCLA. I would look at him in the second round. You know, any of these guys, he's 314 pounds. He could be your nose tackle / sub package guy. Another guy from Alabama, the other guy that, you know, Alabama had that defense, Jerron Reed from Alabama. He's 6'3", 307 pounds. Same thing. Can play nose tackle, and he can be your rush guy.
And real quick, I mean, you're talking about a lot of guys here, and usually when you go into a draft, there isn't 20 guys at one position that are good, but you were mentioning before that, yeah, the Steelers need a safety, they need a corner, they need a D tackle, and that's perfect for this year because these positions are really deep. So maybe all these names you are saying are really good football players, and it's not just us being stupid and just saying, yeah, all these guys can be good if the Steelers bring them in.
The guy I just mentioned, Kenny Clark, if this was last year's draft, Kenny Clark's the first round pick.
Right.
They were saying there could be 8 to 9 defensive linemen drafted in the first round that could play
crazy.
D tackle, D end. Yeah, and that's and there's still like I'm still, you know, I'm not going to mention every name because of time, but man, there's still guys in here even in the early second that could potentially be starting nose tackles, defensive tackles, 4-3, you know, sub package guys.
Especially when there's only 31 picks in the first round.
Yeah, exactly. And guy I like out of Penn State. Now this could be I think they view him as a second round pick. So if you went corner first, this could be a guy to come back. Guy out of Penn State, Carl Nassib. He's a Stephon Tuitt, Cameron Hayward type guy, which you might say, well, we already have 2 guys there, but you know, Stephon Tuitt actually did play a little bit of nose tackle for Notre Dame, and the only reason he didn't is because they had Lewis Nix at that time, who was a big, true 3-4 nose tackle, run stuffer. Didn't get much more out of him, and you can see, you know, he was drafted early and really haven't heard his name.
Yeah.
I think the Bears drafted him.
I mean, it's true. If you can find a better D end than D tackle, I would definitely go for that as well because, like you said, they can move these guys around on the defensive line there.
And Carl Nassib is more of a D-end, edge rusher type guy. I think he could actually be perfect for what we're talking about. We're looking for somebody to spell Hayward and Tuitt. He definitely play the 5 technique. He's 6'7", 277 pounds. And he could also have his hand down in the dirt in that sub package and come off the edge, create a little bit of havoc there. He's a guy from Penn State. And if anybody watched Penn State football, there was 2 guys on that line, Nassib and Anthony Zettel, which is another possible pick that just created havoc for other teams. And Nassib reminds me a lot of a Aaron Smith type player. Hard motor.
Take that all day long.
You know, athletically, you're going to look at him and go, oh, you know, he can't. He is a motor. He has a motor and it just doesn't stop. Reminds you a lot of Dwight Freeney. Maybe not as athletic, but just keeps that motor going. Hard worker. It'll be a guy that you always want to have on your team. One of those guys that he will not give up no matter what it is.
Sort of like a Martavis Bryant type.
Always want to have on the team. Carl Nassib will not be in jail with Martavis Bryant. And, you know, here we are again. And so I just mentioned Carl Nassib. Robert Nemish. Spelled weird, but it's Nemish. So Nemish. Robert Nemish from Ole Mississippi. Could have been a first-round guy. Got caught, I believe, with marijuana. Slid him down the
Le'Veon?
Yep. Moved him down the draft board. He would have been perfect in the backseat with Le'Veon and Martavis.
Who's the guy that was driving down Pittsburgh hitting people?
Oh, yeah, the guy that came to my school and played basketball.
Who was it? What was his name? I don't know. I can't remember. Move on, man.
Anyway, Robert Nemish. Now, this guy, if it wasn't for marijuana charges, failed marijuana test, I believe it happened at the combine as well, he would be your number 1 D tackle.
Now, do you think if he was on the team, he would show up for the drug test?
I think he would.
You might as well just show up, man. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
if you don't go, I mean, you're going to fail.
This guy's probably smoking for pleasure, not for depression. So I think it all depends on how you're using it.
I don't know. It seems like Martavis and Le'Veon smoke for performance.
And hey, if
it works, it works.
Bell's a heck of an athlete, and if it works for you, then
Why do you think Denver won the Super Bowl?
So let me ask you a quick question. It's a non-football question. If you go, if you played for Denver and you got caught driving down the road,
I mean,
are you fined by the NFL?
Yeah, well, it is an NFL rule you can't do it. So, yeah, if you are a Denver player, you're still going to get in trouble. But, I mean, there is people saying that they could take that to court. You know what I mean? If you live in Colorado and it's legal, you could take it to court and say, hey, I mean, it's...
How are you going to punish me and suspend me when it's legal?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And maybe it does improve performance because Denver killed it this season.
Well, then it would fall under a performance-enhancing drug.
Yeah.
One way or another, they're going to get you. Another guy, and we're still talking. These guys are still first to second round players. Jihad Ward out of Illinois. Tomlin was at the Senior Bowl, and he spent a lot of time with this guy, really on his butt, getting him to perform. And they ended up meeting another guy that could play defensive end, maybe play a little bit of that nose tackle. So right there, I just mentioned, like I said, in previous years, those all could possibly be first-round picks. There's some guys like Sean Oakman, who I don't think the Steelers would touch, but my God, 6'7", 269 pounds, ran off the charts. I think he ran a 4.7. You talk about size, stand next to that guy. But that's, there is a lot of depth, but I think the depth falls within the first 3 rounds. So first 3 to 4
got to grab
rounds.
them early.
Yep. And I had to mention that many because there's that many good ones.
Let's not forget the Steelers suck in the 3rd round as well.
Yeah, and
so
that's
if you
true.
want a good one, grab them in the 2nd.
Well, if you grabbed Carl Nassib in the 3rd, you know what you're getting. Potentially, he's not going to be that Pro Bowl player year round, but you're getting a high motor. I don't think you can miss with that pick. I really don't. So that brings us to then. I want to get to the safety position because pretty much
we got one position left here defensively. Are we going to go over quarterback as well, backup quarterback?
Yeah, we'll just briefly talk about that because offensively, I mean, there isn't much. The only, I'll mention right now while I'm going through my notes here. The only offensive guy that I want to mention that's not a quarterback is his name's Tyler Irvin. Again, go to YouTube, check him out. He's a running back, kick returner from San Jose State. They met with him at the combine. They attended his pro day. He's a smaller guy, but he's built. So
he's not Dree Archer?
No, he's not
Dree Archer was built, though. I mean, you see that dude with his shirt on?
Well,
he is completely ripped.
Well, when you're, but he was 160 pounds.
Yeah, I get it.
This guy's 5'9", 192 pounds. So we're talking, he has that thickness.
We're talking Bobby Rainey here.
Yeah, kind of a Ray Rice build. Bobby Rainey. Kind of a Ray Rice build. The guy, if you watch him, real good zone runner, fast, accelerated kid. His acceleration is, it's off the charts. He's a tough kid. He runs with power for his size. Had several college games. He had over 30 touches.
How is he in the passing game?
He can catch the ball in the backfield. He's not compared to Dree Archer because of his, his size. But if you look at his yards per carry was up for this guy. And, when he's running that zone and he turns and he hits it, if it's there, I mean, the guy is, he's averaging, you'd see him 10 to 12 yards down the field that quick. So I think it'd be a good change of pace back. You have Bell, you have Williams,
D'Angelo.
And then you have, we still have Toussaint, but this guy could be your punt returner, kick returner, if we're even returning kicks this year. Okay, so going to the safety position, the guy I really like, and I don't think there's a safety in the first round. I don't think there's a safety I would take in the first round. I know early on there's a lot of Pittsburgh fans in love with Darian Thompson until he ran the 40, but there's not a guy in the first round. However, from the 2nd and 3rd round, maybe even to the 4th, we got a slew of guys. Again, like the D tackle position. So when I was mentioning about taking a corner first, you can see why I said take a corner first, because D tackle in the 2nd and 3rd and safeties in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th are deep. And, the Steelers know this. I've said this before. They're smart. Their areas of needs are the areas that are loaded in the draft, and they wouldn't go in that way. They only sign what they feel like, is lacking. They signed, a tackle, and they're looking at a guard center because there are none in this draft that they feel comfortable with. So here we go. First guy, local guy, West Virginia. Gotta love the Mountaineers. Carl Joseph. If any of you West Virginia fans out there, This guy, you know who he is.
Is he in love with his cousin?
Good one. No, Carl Joseph. They centered the defense around him. He played a lot like, and I'm not comparing him to Troy Polamalu, but he was all over the field. They'd bring him up, they'd move him back. He is a hitting machine. He's your true strong safety. Has a little bit of coverage skills.
I see in bold Deion Sanders there. What is that
Deion
about?
Sanders did a great interview with Carl Joseph.
Garbage.
During the combine. He's shorter. He's 5'9", but he's 205 pounds. Playing strong safety, you're not covering the big, tall receivers, so we're looking for that guy that can run, get to the ball. He's compared to Earl Thomas. This guy can get to the football, and if you watched, he actually got injured 2 games. The West Virginia defense went straight down in the toilet as soon as he left that field. So he's a game changer, and that's what you look for on film. This guy changed that whole defense, and as soon as he left, and this is what I was saying about Antonio Brown, you give the guy what he wants because when he was off the field, yes, we have some great athletes, but you saw the offense change. It got a little conservative, Ben didn't have that blanket, and Ben's still a great quarterback. The receivers are still good, but they're, you don't have that one that can just take over the game. I feel like Carl Joseph is that guy. He's one of my highest safeties for the Steelers, especially at a strong safety position. Another guy, Darian Thompson, we are going to mention. Taller guy, 6'2", 208 pounds. His 40 time was not very good, though. He's a ball hawk, though. When you watched him in the Senior Bowl, he was all over the place. He can tackle. Other than the speed, I really feel like he could be a good pick for the Steelers to put more depth on there. The question is, though, is he a strong safety or free safety? I don't see him as an in a box. I see him as a top, deep safety, and right now Mike Mitchell's there. So to draft him that early, I just don't see it.
Yeah, it wouldn't make any sense, really.
No. And another guy from Ohio State, and you know how they love their Buckeyes. And this guy, when they went to Ohio State, a lot of people thought they were looking at Eli Apple, which I'm sure they did, but they were more intrigued with Von Bell. Von Bell might be a guy that just goes in the first round. We might see him go right before the Steelers or a little bit after. I don't think the Steelers are going to take him in the first round. If he's there in the second, absolutely. Or if they trade back into the second, early into the second, I could see him taking him. Now, this guy is more of he's a great tackler. He's not that hard-hitting strong safety, but he's a strong safety and he's a free safety. He is a great tackler. He's 5'11", 199 pounds, ran a 4.4 40. He has high football IQ. He's intercepted the ball a lot. He's tough physically, good speed, good hands. I think he's better coverage than Carl Joseph. He's a better cover guy, which goes a long way in the NFL. And if you can still tackle, sometimes that big hitting isn't always what you need.
Can he jump over the line?
Well, we're not there yet, but no, I don't think there'll ever be another Troy Polamalu. But Von Bell is definitely on their target list. Another guy, I think, in the second. Moving on, again, second round pick. They met at the combine, went down to the pro day. This is Keanu Neal. He's a safety from Florida, 6 foot, 211 pounds. He's a solid, instinctive player. Best fits for strong safety. He's not really a high safety guy, and I think that's where Von Bell has a little bit more value because he can be a high safety guy, or he could be the strong safety. Keanu Neal is a strong safety. He's not built just like Carl Joseph, hard hitter. The only difference I see between Carl Joseph and Keanu Neal is like Keanu Neal would come out and Florida still had a defense. Carl Joseph
the one thing I want to mention real quick, when you say hard hitter, I almost don't even care about that anymore because of what I've seen from our safeties over the past few years. I want to see a good tackler. I don't care if you hit hard, just tackle correctly.
And then Von Bell's your guy. He's a good, solid tackler. But sometimes with those hard hits comes forcing turnovers.
And terrible mistakes.
Yeah, well, and you're right there.
If you can't tackle. If you can tackle and hit hard, then you're good to go.
Yeah, the only thing with Keanu Neal is his 40 time wasn't that great for being 6 foot, 211 pounds. He ran a 4.62. It's about average, though, for a safety. Safeties aren't blazing fast anymore. Played for Florida, of course, going to be good there. I feel like he's a hard hitter.
I feel like the Steelers have trouble with Florida players, though.
Yeah, we haven't had much success with them. Rainey.
There's some other guys I thought. A receiver?
Well,
is there a receiver
Max Starks turned out all right.
Max Starks.
Marcus Gilbert, I believe, is from Florida, isn't he?
Marcus Gilbert is from Florida.
Yeah, I knew they had Starks there, and then they ended up drafting Gilbert the next year, so I knew they both were from Florida. All right, so these next two guys that we're going to talk about, Sua Cravens from USC, which he was the early mock draft back in January when people started mock drafts. Sua Cravens was the guy that Steelers were going to pick in the first round. Can't miss. Unfortunately, he had a pro day, and he ran a 4.78. He was a safety his freshman year. Then he moved him to inside linebacker. He was a 4.3 wheel linebacker. I still think he's better there as a linebacker. Now, if the Steelers want to create a position where Shazier is on the field and a guy like Sua Cravens or this next guy I'm going to talk about, a Delon Buchanan position where it's an inside linebacker but can turn to coverage and roll the hips. This guy he ran really good. The drills were good. He opened his hips really well. You can tell he's a safety. He's a safety to inside linebacker.
Thompson last season. Is that the guy's name we were thinking of? Something Thompson?
Oh, Shaq Thompson.
Shaq Thompson. There it is.
Yeah, Shaq Thompson played for the Carolina Panthers. There's a guy there that he was a running back. He was a wide receiver. He played linebacker and he played safety.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that was the guy
Shaq
we
Thompson
were trying to think of before.
Well, and you see, he was very successful in that defense.
Yeah.
That was a 4.3, a weak linebacker and a 4.3 where you can cover him up. That's not bad. So here's the difference. You got Ryan Shazier, who's played linebacker. If you watch Ryan Shazier open his hips up, he's not a defensive back. But if you've played safety and then moved to linebacker, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But you're not as instinctive on the linebacking skills. You know? So Sua Cravens, though, watching him play a lot, he had some instincts as a linebacker. So he could be a great nickel position. I don't know if you want to use a second round pick, though. This goes back to almost our nose tackle talk. Do you want to use a second round pick on a position that is only going to be in passing situation?
I remember talking the same thing last season about Shaq Thompson. This guy was a first round option.
Yeah.
And we were saying the same exact thing.
Yeah, Sua Cravens is definitely, do you want a 4.7 something guy, back deep, being your last thing in defense there, especially with, AJ Green or somebody running down the sideline. So, and we play a lot of that cover two. They better go back and watch some film because our cover two was a little weak, but our whole secondary is weak. So I guess it doesn't matter what coverage we run.
Not Willie Gay, man.
So another guy like Sua Cravens that I want to talk about is Jeremy Cash from Duke.
Cash money.
Cash was a little bit faster. He was a 4.6 guy. But if you watch him, he covers a little bit better, but he acts like a linebacker. He changes the game. He comes flying up from the linebacker / safety position. Very instinctive. He knows as soon as he sees the toss, he's gone. Like he's in the backfield making the play. I actually watched him. Guard and another guy tried to tackle him, and he split it. Both defenders went straight down to the ground and made the tackle. Watch some of his highlights. He's all over the field. I know the Steelers had him in as well, so that could be another guy.
And what round are we talking about there?
This would all be the second round.
Second round.
Well, Jeremy Cash could be a third round guy. And Sua Cravens, they had him in the first, and now I'm here in second, but running that 4.75, he's dropping down boards. He could be another third round guy as well. TJ Green from Clemson could be a third round guy. We're starting to get back in the draft a little bit. Tyvis Powell, I'm gotta throw him in there because he's a Ohio State free safety now. Vaughn Bell was their strong safety. Both of them are in the draft. KJ Dillon was the free safety from West Virginia when Carl Joseph was out. He moved around. Jerron Kearse was a guy from Clemson. They met him at the pro day and they had him in Pittsburgh. Look at his size, 6'4", 216 pounds. He's a bigger guy. He didn't run fast, but at that size,
Yeah.
But here's another guy. Is he that inside linebacker safety position guy? But he could be, third.
See, I really don't think we have the time for these guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
'Cause we need something that can make an impact. Maybe not day one, but by game 5, game 6, you see him getting in there. And for these guys, it would seem like it would take a little bit longer, just because you really don't know how you're even going to play him.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a little bit longer, but it's in situations. If you're only, you can't draft the guy in a situation in the second round.
Yeah.
Even the third's questionable. Maybe the fourth. Maybe. Fourth can be the start, like when you start day 3 of the draft.
Yeah.
Those are guys where you're looking for situational things. I mean, if you're a fourth rounder.
Day 3 of the draft, it's stupid.
Pretty soon there's going to be 7 days. So, safety, I mean, if you're looking for a guy that can play right now, the 3 that are on top are Carl Joseph to me, Vaughn Bell, and Keanu Neal are my 3 top, and Darian Thompson, who I think could probably play. But I see Darian Moore as a free safety, and I think we're in a strong safety need right now.
Yes.
And I think our strong safety now, which is Robert Golden, he can cover. So he could be like a unique type of position. So you could have a guy like Carl Joseph in the box, or Keanu Neal in the box, or Von Bell who's stopping the run, and then maybe he comes in on passing downs to do more coverage. But if you're going to take a guy in the second round like Von Bell, which I really like because he can do both. He can cover, he can hit, he can tackle. Carl Joseph, very similar. I think Carl Joseph is an intimidator, though. He can create turnovers. And like I said, when you watch him go off the field and the defense goes downhill, that's, that to me says game changer all over it. So that's pretty much it. They had Austin Hooper, a tight end from Stanford. And I know Nick Vanette from Ohio State again. Another guy they looked at.
I really don't think tight ends.
I don't think so, but it's hard to say. I don't know if Spaeth is going to be around much longer. We're talking 4th to 6th round here. Don't see really that happening.
I'd rather just draft a couple more corners and safeties, to tell you the truth.
Very possible. Yeah, and I already said two corners are coming off this board. I really feel like it's going to be 2 corners, 1 safety, 1 D tackle. That's 4. And I see a defensive end probably in the mix, which is 5. I mentioned Tyler Irvin, which could be 6. And I'm really feeling like there's going to be a quarterback somewhere along this draft. They were high on Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott has to be taken in the 4th rown, though.
They spent
he could have been
a pick on Landry Jones in the 4th,
yeah,
right?
They traded for him.
Ugh.
Yeah, that does suck. But the problem with Dak Prescott is he was actually going to be a 3rd round pick, but he just had a DUI. He just got caught drinking and driving. I mean, there's been worse.
Yeah,
Martavius Bryant. But obviously, if they can see past that, that could be we'd have to give up a 4th for that. I don't know if we're ready for that yet. Vernon Adams is the Oregon Ducks quarterback. Looks and build just like Russell Wilson. Smaller guy, but he can throw the ball. I mean, he's very accurate. I was watching him at the scouting combine. He threw the ball very well. And then there's some bigger guys a little bit later, but we're not going to get too much into that. But I really feel like a quarterback could be on the. And one more thing I just want to present, and we talked about this before, Paxton Lynch. If you're setting at 25, and you've scouted Paxton Lynch, he's 6'5", 213 pounds.
The future.
He ran a 4.68. Built a lot like Big Ben. Got a hose on him. Threw extremely well at the combine. I mean,
Okay,
right now,
let's say he's there in the 1st round. Are you taking him, or are you trying to trade? Trade back.
Trade back for what?
For a early second round pick.
Well, the greatest scenario is he's still there. We don't want him, but somebody does. That's
right.
The greatest scenario. So somebody like Dallas Cowboys, they've had Paxton Lynch in. They like Carson Wentz too, but they've had Paxton Lynch in, and they're still there. They're not going to use their early pick on him. So here's the Steelers at 25, and Cowboys call and say, "Hey, we'll give you our 2nd, 3rd, and maybe a 2nd next year, just to give us your 1st round pick."
And Tony Blomo.
No thanks.
Deals off.
You give me all your picks, deals off. That's a great way to add picks, though. Is obviously getting where somebody wants something, and you really can afford to do that. If you can move early into the 2nd, like I mentioned, all these guys, you're still going to get a good D tackle. You might miss out on that, William Jackson, but somebody like Kendall Fuller, who was injured.
From everything you told me over the past hour of recording here, which is freaking ridiculous, I like that William Jackson and the way you talked about him, and I'd like to see him come in here. But I mean, who knows? I also liked what I heard about Eli Apple coming into today, and you don't seem as high on him. And I usually listen to you when it comes to this kind of stuff. So, it's hard to say.
When you're looking at a corner, you got to check the box off because like I said, they're so hard to evaluate. He can tackle. He's got height. He's got speed. Plays man coverage, plays zone coverage. I mean, he checks every single box. High football IQ, turnovers. People didn't want to throw his way. Well known. Good locker room guy. Like, checked every box off. And if he checks every box off and Eli Apple doesn't, I mean, isn't that what you go with?
I hear you.
So, in Eli Apple's, he has maybe more upside. He could be a Pro Bowler in the future, but for the Steelers, they got 4 years with Ben, and after that, we all know how a quarterback can go. Look at Cleveland, for crying out loud.
That's what worries me. I mean, we got Ben for 4 more years, and who knows? After that, it may be done. That may be it for Ben after these 4 years. Now, if we take 2 years trying to get this corner situation figured out, that leaves 2 years left with Ben. You know what I mean? So we got to get this done quick, because after Ben, it may be another 20 years before we have a quarterback that can actually get you to the Super Bowl.
How old is Ben now?
Ben is 34 years old still.
So 4 more years.
But you got to remember, 38. That it's a little different though, because he gets beat up a lot more than other quarterbacks.
Tom Brady.
Cam Newton, Big Ben, they get their asses handed to him. To tell you the truth, and refs do not care. The refs will not call penalties against defenses on Big Ben and Cam Newton. If it was Tom Brady, I mean, yeah, he'll get every single call in the book. But with Big Ben, this guy gets knocked around so much, so I don't believe he's a guy that can last till he's 41, 42 years old.
No, and that's Big Ben's style of play. That's
oh,
what
yeah,
that is.
I want him to
and
play
Cam
like
Newton,
that.
too. I mean, when you run the ball,
Yeah.
I think he had 700 yards rushing or something. I mean,
The refs could help him out, though. Give him a couple more calls when they get beat up in the backfield there.
yeah, so.
That's it, though. Wrap it up. Willie Jackson. That's who I'm looking for.
The third.
The third.
Oh, it's the second.
Not the second, like RG2 here. So, if you want to hit us up at bet_the_spread on, Twitter, and on Facebook. It is facebook.com/betthespread. And if you're listening to us on something other than YouTube, you can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/betthespread. And give us a thumbs up on this video and other videos, and subscribe as well, because we need it. We've been doing this stuff for 2 years, and we have like 250 subscribers. Garbage. But thanks for taking some time with me, RG2, to go over some Steelers stuff here, because really, I mean, Jim, like I said, he's been so busy that we haven't been able to do any Steelers content this offseason outside of a couple segments here and there. I think he did one on Martavis Bryant when he got suspended or whatever. And I know our mock draft last season got a lot of views and whatnot, and including the ones that we did just for the Steelers here. And I expect this to get some views too, so I want to thank you.
It's been a pleasure, and Jim, enjoy your job. By the sounds of it, you need to drink some more.
That's easy.
When I listen to the spread, that's the first thing I hear is you open up the can.
That's easy. Please believe it. Peace.